training with Ldn Pd is the use of the MDT. So how we get the MDT out is we do t/think about MDT, which will bring it to this page here. So this is where you're able to see all of the officers which are on duty currently, their call signs. You can assign yourself on and off duty. Within here you have a global search as well, so I can search myself, for example. It will also bring up all of the vehicles which are related to myself. Next we go to instance. Instance you can search by an incident reference number, but this is where you will also book people in. So for example, Jim Morales, we'll do that. And we've got one here I've created earlier. So someone's assaulted myself with an offensive weapon. You'd go through that, search the suspects, Jim Morales again, put myself down, the officer, put yourself down, and the charges. So we'll just select a couple of these here. And it'll give you the total months and the total fine and what you have obviously going to be charging them for. So the maximum sentence we can provide is 45 months, but also if you go here, you can reduce the fine and jail reduction, or you can do it together. As you can see, that's put a 21% and a 90% reduction and brought that down. When you press submit, that will send them straight to the penitentiary, up to jail. So make sure you've read their rights prior to doing any of that. Obviously, then make sure that you don't send yourself off to jail as well. Evidence doesn't get used by RPU, that will be dealt with by CID. Once again, same with warrants. Warrants tend to be dealt with by CID. They will place them out on offenders who are at large, but you can also put them out yourself if you dealt with it. Officers, once again, shows who's on for what unit. So it shows you've got any CID on, obviously any com team that are on, any RPU constables, and any firearms on. Bolos, or be on the lookouts. You can add these on yourself. Pay attention to any sort of vehicles, any sort of persons as well. Quite a handy little bit of kit, and it will notify on dispatch when someone's put a bolo on. Dispatch doesn't have anything that's currently working within it. Camera is also inactive at the moment. Next one is citizens, which is a bit like a PNC check. So we'll search myself again. There we go. It will come up with all the details, date of birth, obviously their job role. So if you want to search someone, you can obviously check against their details, ask them to confirm their date of birth if you think they're lying to you. Any incidents that are linked to them, and any sort of driving licence, and also any vehicles or properties that are owned by that person. Be aware when you're checking someone, you can obviously link them as a victim involved. So as you can see, I was involved as a victim for this. Yeah, cool. Vehicles, once again, you can search the number plates. So let me search one that I've got. Smithy, for example. It'll show you who the owner is, any sort of make or model. That will bring up all the information that relates to it. Houses, exactly the same. Weapons not used. Codes not used. Charges, you can see a list of all the charges here within the city, and if you need to add any, that can be done by the commission team. Announcements, once again, aren't used as we tend to do everything within the emails, and administration and configuration won't be available to yourself. That's a quick demonstration of how to use the MDT. Obviously, please refer to your FTO should you have any sort of further questions. Next thing we're going to be looking at is going to look at our dispatch. Flexing around muscle will bring up the dispatch. On the notification panel on the right and left hand side here, you'll see any sort of active calls where you'll be able to right click and respond to notification. On the right hand side, you'll see a obviously use list of all the relevant units that are currently on duty. So for example, select this one. I can select to set GPS location. So if you don't know where they are, you can set it to them and your mapping or your GPS will take them to them. Or you can obviously join the radio channel for them and obviously speak to them on that. Go to the little spanner. If you're doing training or anything like that, you can change your status if you're unavailable or available. But obviously if you're doing something or going in here, please clock out. Change obviously any sort of mute sounds, obviously what you're doing as well, helicopter, boat, car. And that's pretty much it. That's all we really use this one for. We don't have anything else on there. Next we'll look at your radial menu, Z muscle. but we advise that changing that in your brain settings, as that is obviously the check ID muscle as well. So I've reassigned mine to a different key, so I bring it up there. So it's where your player interactions and clothing are, but once you're obviously on duty, you have the police one here. On there, now you can obviously access your panic, you can check ID, search, escort, handcuff, send people to jail. That doesn't get used as we use the MDT. You can select the radio channel you're on, and these sort of vehicle options, so you can impound, lockpick vehicles, especially suspect vehicles that are obviously locked at the side of the road that you wish to search. Panic button was set off for panic. Check ID obviously checks the ID of the citizen in front of you, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It's nice and easy. Here we're going to use our unwilling commissioner, who's currently gone into his head, just for the demonstration of the third eye. As you can see, using my left alt, hover over him, it brings obviously all the details of what we can do with him. Search the suspect, check his identification, handcuffing options, escort and place in vehicle. The only ones we're really going to be using here are search our suspect, escorting and place in vehicle. So for select search suspect, it will bring up everything that is within his inventory, and that I can remove over into my inventory should I need to do, and vice versa, you can move between the two. If we close that, look again, and for example, if someone's refusing to give you details, you can obviously roll your body out. You can say, I'm going to check identification, or also I'm going to reach into your pockets to look for ID. They may say, oh, I don't have anything in there, and then we'll continue roll body. But if they don't say anything, you can check identification. In that, we'll bring up the results of it to give you their name, their job role, what their current position is, date of birth, their gender, any sort of driving license or anything that will be linked to them. Once again, escort suspect, once they're detained in cuffs, if you set the escort suspect, it will enable you to move them with their own free will. If they're hard cuffed, which they will be, using your J muscle, that will enable you to move them into a obviously better position to get them into a car, and you can use the place in vehicle or remove from vehicle if they're already in a car. Nice and easy.